Welcome to Home Farm. Today we're going to be building a sawbuck that will allow us to safely chainsaw our wood for our wood store. As part of our property, the wood store that we have is located to the right of our garage, and we have this big wall in front here. So what we're going to do is we're going to be building a sawbuck that will be permanently placed there, but we want to make a bit of a feature out of it. In order to do this, we're going to be building our sawbuck from reclaimed wood. This is the wood that we're going to be using to build the sawbuck with. When we purchased the house, the previous owners had done a lot of renovation work to the property, and these were a lot of the original beams and joists that were inside the house. The wood is obviously really old, and we really haven't thought of a good use for it up until this point. So once it's been built, the sawbuck will go up against that wall, and it should look really authentic, and it should just blend in really nicely with the rest of the house. Completed the first axe. Each length is 1.2 meters. As you can see, we've retained as many of the feature bits as possible. I probably will remove some of the sharp edges depending on how I ultimately decide to assemble it. Oh, it's cool is because I've put a bolt in through the middle. It's an M8 bolt. You are able to basically swivel this around. So once I'm ready, once I've created the next two axes, we'll then basically put in spacers, if you like, that will allow me to determine the angle of the top V, and then we'll basically take it from there to the next step. Our sawbuck is now taking shape. I've placed the two braces on the front and on the back. That basically creates the support for the actual legs. So there we go, our sawbuck is finished. We can see that we have the two braces on the front, one at an angle, which holds the three A-frame legs together. We kept some of the feature-rich finishes on it. There are a couple of nails in there. They're not really in anybody's way, and they look nice. From a design perspective, we intentionally positioned the middle A legs towards the right-hand side so that we can balance logs along the right-hand side. I am right-handed, so it's going to be easier to chainsaw in that direction. And if we have a longer log, it can run the full length of the sawbuck, so we can still continue to saw and it's not going to wobble or fall. Because our sawbuck is going to be a permanent feature, we're not going to be moving this around. I've made ours adjustable, if you like, by not putting in the separator braces on this side of the A-frame. Typically what you would do is you would put the braces there to prevent the legs from opening and closing. But due to the positioning of this, its weight, and the fact that it's propped up against that wall, this sawbuck isn't going anywhere. And what it does give me is the flexibility that should we get a bigger log that we need to cut, I can merely pop the legs open, and that'll give us a wider space for us to accommodate that piece of wood. The bolts that run through the middle of the A-frame gives the sawbuck the ability to open its legs or close them, which basically allows you to play around with the kind of logs that you can put on the top. So we've got a smaller branch, and if it's falling through, we can close the legs, and if it's a wider one, we can pull it apart and have it wider. In case you're wondering what tools we used for this job, I used the handsaw. We haven't invested in a miter saw yet, so all of the pieces of wood were sawn by hand. We had the drill to drill the pilot holes, the impact driver to drive the screws in, the tape measure obviously to allow you to get all your measurements correct, and we used the right angle to allow us to position the braces at 90 degrees to their A-frames. This is the first time that we have worked with oak. Oak is very dense and hard as a wood, so I found that drilling just the normal pilot holes that you're accustomed with using treated timber were insufficient to put in these 120 or 100 mil screws. So we had to use a longer drill bit to lengthen the pilot holes, and that made it a lot easier to drive the lengthier screws into the oak. This is what happened to my impact driver screwdriver bit when I tried to drive one of the 120 mil screws into the oak that hadn't had a sufficiently deep pilot hole. It absolutely splintered and got destroyed. By lengthening the pilot holes, it really simplified the whole process, and I didn't damage another one. So there we have it. That's one final look at our sawbuck that's been made from reclaimed oak beams and joists. It was a very simple project to undertake. I've already used it to chainsaw some wood yesterday for the fires. It was super sturdy, it was really strong, and much safer than trying to cut logs that are lying on the ground or trying to balance them if you've got irregular shaped pieces of wood. So this is a project I would certainly recommend you undertake. Obviously we used the reclaimed wood, but there's nothing preventing you from just heading down to your hardware store, picking up some timber, some treated timber, and constructing something like this yourselves. It's far more secure, far more attractive, and cheaper than a lot of the stuff that we saw online when we potentially looked at buying a Sawbuck. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. You can also follow us on Twitter or check out our website at myhomefarm.co.uk. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button below, and if you have any suggestions for any other videos you would like to see, please leave a comment. We hope to see you on our next video.